Welcome everybody to our first webinar to launch Affineur of the Year. I'm just going to let participants join while we get set up. We've got 4 amazing cheeses to talk and taste through tonight. For those of you who aren't aware about the Academy, we're an educational program for people who love cheese or who are working in cheese. And there are 4 certifications, 4 levels of certification. We're talking about affinage tonight, and that's studied across all 4 levels. It's maturing, affinage and grading. And it's a very exciting topic. It is something that's very passionate to our speaker tonight. And we will be delving deep into that this evening. So I'm going to introduce you. Well, what I'm going to say is I'm hoping the chat is, here we've got Cara started off the chat. Hi, Cara.
Hey, Cara.
Do put where you're visiting us, joining us from in the chat. You can use the chat to ask questions. I'll be monitoring that as well as talking to Perry. And then you can use the Q&A box as well to ask questions, and we'll do our best to. We're aiming for an hour. Hello, Sue from Northumberland. Oh, South Lincolnshire, fantastic. Hello, everyone. Claire from South Wales. Gosh, we're going across the British Isles today. Plymouth, Norfolk, yay! Devon. And Perry's not that far away, really.
No, I'm in Cambridge, but I want to see external from the UK now. That's the thing. I want to see outside, internationally. You know, how far are we reaching? Edinburgh's probably, there you go, Florida, USA, Mexico. Wow, Canada.
I'm here from Canada as well. And I think, I suppose, Affineur of the Year, the competition, we've kept it to the UK for ease of getting cheeses out to people and people being able to come to the competition. What I must say is that the finals, which are on the 14th of June, I think I'm saying that right, they're in London and anybody is welcome to join us. The tickets are 50 quid, an absolute bargain because we just have an absolute tasting fest.
Yeah, so much free cheese, right? You know, for 50 quid, that is a lot of cheese that you get.
Yeah, and I'm an amazing day because you're going to meet so many people that work in the industry. We've got Jill from North Wales. We've got Honduras. Wow, in Central America and Canada. Amazing. So, yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to go make myself smaller and put Perry in full view because he's far prettier than me with his scarf on in the maturing rooms.
You are too kind, Tracy.
And without further ado, let's talk Perry. Perry is Perry James Wakeman. He's from Rennet Rind, who are based in Cambridgeshire. Amazing affineurs, supplying lots of people in the trade, supplying since the pandemic, direct to consumers.
Yeah.
And Perry was our first Affineur of the Year champion. In 2022, there is the trophy.
There it is.
Beautiful piece of wood,
and it's functional as well. You know, you can use. I've used that many a times.
It's your stand for your cheese iron. I was going to call it a trier because they call it a trier. They call cheese irons triers in America. Did you know that?
I knew that, and I don't know if I'm fond of it.
I don't know if I'm fond of it because it's like, I'm going to try something, so it's a trier. Anyway, congratulations, Perry, on last year's achievement. How's that? I'm going to ask you an in-depth question to set us off. How's that changed the world at Rennet Rind since you won the competition?
Yeah, it's changed it pretty, massively and not massively at the same time. We're still doing what we love to do, mature cheese, but the recognition of what we do is just growing. and to see more people in the industry like come forward and talk about affinage being such an important part of cheese making, the cheese making process. And you know, to have cheesemakers reach out to me to say, I've got this problem, what would you do? Can you take my cheese in from like a few days? And like I would say the biggest impact has been my learning. It's just been like massive in terms of loads of cheesemakers coming to me, getting them to mature their cheese, send it back and see what I can do with their cheese. So that's been really exciting. And I think the biggest thing about Affineur of the Year has been, you know, the process of it, which was, and I always say this to people, winning it was lovely. It was a really beautiful moment. But I also, to be modest, won People's Choice as well. And for me, that's not to brag. That's to show that the Priscilla, which was the cheese that I matured, a Quicks cheddar, was matured, you know, to a judge's standard, technically. The rind, the curd, the taste, the flavour, the aroma, etc., all top marks. And then people in the crowd who were going around trying all the other cheeses loved Priscilla as well. So it just goes to show that affinage is real, and you should pay for it, right? I know that sounds like a real obvious thing to say, but people will pay for it. It's a legitimate kind of industry. It's a legitimate thing to do. It's not just a dark arts that no one knows about. So I think for me, that is the thing that I keep on coming back to, that it's kind of solidified affinage into a real world industry that's recognizable. And I'm eternally grateful for that.
And it's very much part of the cheese. What we're trying to do at the Academy is make people understand is that it's part of a cheese. It's part of the process. It's the thing that we call it post-make. And it's the thing that happens after you've made the cheese. A cheese is a cheese, and a lot of them are very similar until this process of affinage gets carried out. And when you're talking about the People's Choice, so this is where, chaps, at the finals, you all get to judge. If you come to the finals, you all get to judge each cheese as well. And you have a little card, and you go around and you taste all of the cheeses, and you decide which one you love. And then we put all of them together in a box, and we collate all the numbers and see who's won the People's Choice. And that's happening again this year, which is fantastic. Really exciting. So, shall we? Do you want to talk about one cheese, and then I'll come back and talk about more about the competition? I mean, the cheese that all the competitors have got at the moment. So there's 17 competitors in total, but there's 11 competitors have got cheese number one, which went out to you guys, out to the 11 competitors, came to you in June last year?
Yes.
It was, because it's got to be 12 months. It's more or less 12 months by the time we get to the June this year to the finals. So as soon as we finished Affineur of the Year last year, we were sending out this year's Quicks. And Clary, tell me all about Quicks cheddar and this year's little number.
Yeah, so obviously we got a Quicks this year, which we had last year. Let me move this to one side, and then we go into this cheese here from the larger wheel. But this is my entry this year so far.
Oh,
so
look at that, looking beautiful.
It is stunning.
Beautiful.
It is stunning, and so it's a smaller wheel than usual. So last year we had a much larger wheel. Because it's
27
smaller.
kilos you had last year, 27 kilos, and this is an 8 kilo, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's losing weight steadily, which is good. And it's just more interesting because you can get more done in 12 months with a smaller cheese, actually. So you can get like far more maturing because it's obviously the surface area is much smaller and you can mature it really well. But we did something slightly unusual with this one, where last year I just wanted to do what I'm known for, which is maturing good cheese. So I kind of did what I usually do with my cheeses, just kind of standard turning, brushing, giving it the love, care, affection that it needs, analysing it. None of that. It would spoil if I did that. And the kind of the key idea behind it was the acidity was high. So that to me usually means there's this acidic note in cheese that I detect, and it's hard to define, but it normally tells me how long that cheese has to mature. And that was the gamble that we took. It was quite acidic. So I wanted to speed it up. So we put it up at 13 degrees and matured it through roughly that. All these documents are online if you want to go and have a look at Priscilla's documents, all the temperature, all the turning schedules, etc. So that's just a good maturing job. And then this year, I just wanted to be a little bit more experimental. So I matured 3 cheddars, which I know and I love, and I matured them in a high humidity conditions, got their rinds really going. And then I clamped them on top of the cheese for about 48 hours, each cheese. One was to expel more moisture quicker, because we thought that would be an interesting texture within the cheese. Right. And 2 was trying to get that final mold that we know and love in the cheese earlier. And by the looks of it, it looks like it's worked well.
We've got a question actually. So yeah. we've got 2 questions. Let's do these. So Mike is saying, what's her name this year? Priscilla 2. Crazy face. Well, crazy Priscilla face emoji.
well, I think I've been keeping this a secret for a little while. And not too long, because it took a while for the name to kind of come to me, and it just obviously happens like that, and that's the way I want it to be. So this year, this gnarly sort of the earth boisterous cheese is a he, and it is called Keith.
It's a he. Yeah. Oh my god, this is exciting.
It's called Keith. I don't know why. It's just a little bit. Love that name straight away, Keith. It's just got a little bit more kind of character about it. A bit sort of the type of guy that would insult you at a bar, and then buy you a drink after.
We don't know anybody in the industry like that, do we?
Don't know anyone like that or whatsoever. But yeah, and I just kind of think that kind of embodies what this kind of cheese is about. I really wanted it to be like gnarly and like break open a little bit and really kind of push the bounds of Quicks being more challenging as a cheddar.
Okay. We've got another question around that, really, from Valerie as well. Sorry, Kerry, to interrupt.
That's okay.
So Valerie is saying, is such molded skin of cheese eatable? I usually cut it away just in case, but I wonder if I can actually eat it without harm to health. I think you need to explain that that's still got the cloth on.
Yeah, so this is cloth bound. So if you have got our cheese pack, we've removed that cloth for you, so the rind is edible on here. So I get this question asked a lot, and actually, in the artisan world of cheese, rinds are far more edible than inedible. It's quite funny that, really, when you actually think about it, that a lot of people are scared of it, and actually, that's where a lot of my kind of work goes. Into the rind, and that's where most of the flavor is, in terms of if you can embrace the atmosphere, the environment, and what that kind of maturing room tastes like. And sometimes it might not be as pleasant, to be honest, but it's a good way to understand where that maturing has kind of come along in terms of its timeline. So yeah, most of the time. So this one is cloth bound. So obviously, if the cloth was still on there, you wouldn't be able to eat it, but most delis will remove it for you, Yeah.
Yeah. We've got Sue Sturman here. Hi, Sue.
Hey, Sue.
She's an absolute expert. She is actually going to be one of our judges this year. We do have 8 judges confirmed, and I'm not going to announce who they all are tonight, but I will tell you that Sue Sturman is a judge. She's
a legend of the industry.
Yes, absolute legend, and actually was your tutor at Mons.
Yes, yeah. So when I went out to Mons, she was with me the whole way, and regularly checked in to see how I'm doing, and just been a massive supporter as well. So yeah. Yeah,
and Sue has given us all an overview about rind there in the chat. So thank you, Sue, for that. Everybody can read it. It's people loving the name Keith.
Yeah. So a little bit more about Keith. I mean, so on the back, some of you might have noticed Eagle Eye. We've got RF chips, so we scan this with our phone, and then we enter in when it's turned and every action that I've done to it. There's been a bit of brushing going on, a bit of smearing going on to get full coverage across the rind, a lot of turning, a kind of more steadier temperature than 13 degrees last year. But, you know, when we release this cheese, it will have all those notes for you guys to access. So, you know, if you come and taste Keith, that's hilarious. If you go and taste Keith, a smear. So I get my gloves on and I kind of up the moisture that's in my hand, so humidity. So not wet, but damp. And then run it along the outside of the cheese. So kind of dislodge the spores that are on the outside or the asexual flat molds and try and get them to procreate in a more even surface around the side. So brushing, I kind of felt like at the stage that I was, because the mold development came in so early, was the cheese was too delicate to brush it aggressively. So I really wanted to do this kind of rub on the outside. So in a weird way, like a hybrid wash, but not an aggressive wash. So yeah, all the results on how Keith came to be will be online. You just, you'd either come up to where we are, Affineur of the Year, and you can replicate and learn from what I did, and you see the turning cycles, the weight loss, and just the kind of, at that moment in a sentence, what I was like on the, 5th of October, me and Keith didn't get along or something like that.
Yeah, you're rowing over a pint. Over who paid for that pint, I think.
Yeah.
Sue's asking a really good question, actually, again. Yeah. And we've got another question about maturing blue, which I think we'll take when we go to the blue section. But what do you expect the rind to look like by June?
By June? So what I'm expecting is the visual element I have in my mind, and we're kind of almost there already, is kind of like a collection of mycology, like molds that are not consistent, and it kind of looks like when you strip wallpaper off a wall and you've kind of got that collage of different molds competing each other, fighting, sways, which we're kind of getting here. And, I've taken photos at every stage of weighing. So you'll be able to see how that development works. I also want to get a little bit of mite in there as well this time around. So I'm currently playing around. It's a real, like I said, I want to be more experimental this year. And mite is a real kind of tricky one and will probably be downgraded by judging. But I think that if I can get a good cultivation, which I've got a thin layer of dust on top of the cheese at the moment, which is great. It's fine. It's kind of like how I know. It feels like it's going to, break into the cheese in a gentle way, keep things turning over, and I really want to keep that going. So a plasterboard, a mix of molds, fighting, out-competing one another, kind of like tearing the rind apart like plasterboard or tearing off wallpaper, some fine miting on the outside and maybe slightly underneath the rind. I think that's what that's, if that gives Sue her answer.
Fantastic. And then, so we've got more questions. They're coming in thick and fast, Perry. You are the expert.
Oh, God.
Do you put in different maturing rooms? So are you, do you have separate maturing rooms?
Yes.
With styles of cheese? So
yeah,
I know you're in the blue area.
So we've got like hastening, gentle jogging on, heated, kind of hibernation, we kind of call it, slow down room. So different temperatures for different cheese. One of the things that I haven't noticed as much, I've been quite experimental with moving cheeses that kind of shouldn't be together to be together. And that's been a really interesting.
Blues in the same room as the cheddars, or keeping blues completely separate?
I was proper kind of like anti that at the beginning. And I'm getting less and less anti it as I go along. And I've got no real facts or evidence for this. And obviously, your spores and things move over. I kind of feel like the anti-spore movement and bluing on like bloom cheeses is kind of waning a bit. When you look at like Martin Gott's cheeses and St. Jude and Synodon Hill, those kind of geotrichum rind cheeses that have spots of blue, people are getting more comfortable with it. And if the
Okay.
strain of blue mold that are on the outside isn't impacting the flavour, you know, because those strains are usually more bitter, then I don't really see what the problem is.
No.
So I'm giving you a fault in motion here, and this motion probably take me 5 years to come to a full-on answer. But yeah, that's kind of where I am with it at the moment.
Do you want to taste that cheddar?
Oh yes, yeah. Let's have a
What
taste.
age profile have you got there? Have you got what age profile are you looking at?
So this is what they're extra mature. So this would be like, what's it like?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Mary's in the chat. I think it's extra mature is 18 to 24 months, isn't it? Or 18
Yeah.
months.
I think it is. Yeah, I mean, like what I tried to do for this one, apart from the Baron and the Cropwell, I tried to get like straight in profiles and stuff that wasn't kind of kept in the kind of the museum, as it were, to try and get more of a kind of. But some of the cheeses I just had to give you because they look stunning, like the Baron at the moment. I mean, in terms of texture, you know, there's a kind of degree of moisture that's in here, and then there's a good snap to it. It's not too pliant, and it's really fresh, actually, quite zingy. So not that tang that you get. Nice zing that's in the cheese.
It looks quite moist. I mean, I haven't got any to taste. It looks quite moist from this view. It looks quite moist.
Yeah, so it's got a little bit of farmyard in the back note there as well. The savoury isn't too much. It's more floral than anything. There's a slight nut in there, which I can't work out. It's very raw. There's a bit of bitterness, but nothing too overpowering. It's and it's got a bit of a tingling kind of like sensation on it.
Nice.
It's deliciously Moorish, actually.
Because you get a lot of time from the Quicks cheddar, especially nearer the rind, you get a lot of. I have experienced a lot of horseradish, and those sort of that savoury horseradish and that zing. Is it horseradishy or more?
Not getting any of that kind of peppy horseradish in this one. Getting more of, you know, Mary's Farm, which is coming through quite heavily. It's quite interesting, Quicks, because I always find it's a good opener to people who are entering the artisan cheddar world. You know, there's a lot of notes in there, and you know, Mary may agree or disagree. So Rebecca's confirming the farm flavour.
Yeah,
there's a lot of familiar kind of flavors in there. I kind of feel like Quicks is a bridge kind of between people who are just starting out, you know their cheddars that they have, you know, day in, day out. It's kind of like a bridge to the artisan world. It gently guides you into that kind of real gnarly flavor. It's got those familiar notes there. They're not too insulting. I always love the touch of that farmyard kind of area. I think it's really important to know that where your cheese came from. So
it's always really amazing how different they are from nose to rind, though, because it's cloth bound. So that towards the rind, it's such a different flavor profile, isn't it? With that, so keep trying, guys, to the rind.
You've got a fair amount of cheese there, so I mean, you've got more of that pineapple that's actually in there. You've got more of that fruit that's towards the rind.
Laura's saying, Laura, we've got Laura here, and she's saying she's a newbie to tasting to the rind. So yeah, take a long thin sliver, Laura, and make sure you do appreciate those different different flavors and textures. It's going to be drier nearer the rind.
Yeah, and I think someone just said far less farmy towards the rind. They're 100% right. You know, obviously, I'm trying the cheeses and I've got a limited space, so I just kind of just break off a bit and just get involved. But you get to try that.
Straight off the nose.
Straight off the nose.
We've got another couple of questions. How do the molds penetrate into the center of the cheese? They don't really, do they?
They don't really.
Which is why you want to taste that rind, Laura.
With the Quicks, but then when you're talking about a smaller cheese, you know, that actually becomes more encompassing as those tendrils come into the cheese and then break down the proteins to complex amino acids. So it depends on the size of the cheese, but the rind's important.
Where do you want to go next? Do you want to go? So, I mean, the
Well,
next piece to go out is going to be the blue, but do you want to go blue now or go? Do you want to go?
I don't think so. I'll mess up your order and make things complicated. And is it all right if we go for we go Baron then Solstice and just clean it up a little bit? So this is one of our.
I'll explain a little bit about the Baron by God is from Fen Farm while you sort of get your slice ready to taste. Now the Baron by Gods are going to be the 3 kilo wheels that are going to go to the Affineurs, and they're going out 8 weeks before the finals. So they're going to receive their cheeses week commencing 17th of April. So obviously Perry has got his stock of Baron by God that he buys day in and day out from them. It will be how old when it goes out? So it's going to be only 3 days old when it comes out to you guys, which is going to be interesting, isn't it? It's going to be boxed. It's now pasteurized cow's milk, but it's from Fen Farm in
Bungay?
In Bungay, yes. I've lived down the road there. Should know. It looks absolutely amazing. What
well, this is
that?
Well, this is our profile 3. So we at Rennet Rind we run 3 profiles. We're a bit light on profile 1 at the moment, actually, which I need to speak to the guys about and get some younger profiles in. But Baron by God kind of works like clockwork with us. You know, luckily we've got enough customers where it fits in like 2 different categories. So it's quite a simple maturing process. We get the 1 kilo wheels, which are a little bit like this. We turn them once a week.
You buy the 1 kilos.
I like the 1 kilos a lot. I mean, so we turn these, you know, once or twice a week if they need them, keep them in their protective covering, keep the temperature nice and steady, and they tend to just move on gently. You know, Baron by God, they're like masters of cheese making, aren't they? So these are a fairly simple maturing method.
That was a key word, gently. You cannot speed up.
No. Well, I think the important thing to know is actually for people who have this cheese is if you give it a whiff, there is 0 ammonia that's in there, and that's where you know a lot of people attribute this profile running ripe with a little bit of spice and a little bit of ammonia, and that's what happens usually if you try and speed it up. Ammonia is normally the first kind of domino to fall, which is your kind of festival toilet smell. Let's just say it how it is. Sorry.
Many a time.
And that kind of spicy, kind of abrasive on the palate. And, you know, that's what we're known for with a lot of our bloomy kind of rinds, is that we can actually get there without the touch of ammonia. And all it is time. And we're fortunate enough that we've got a lovely customer base. So that's restaurant, colleges, you know, like people online that like to take a breath of the profile. I think when I do you remember the British Cheese Weekender where I matured 3 different profiles?
That was amazing.
That kind of kicked off the profile 3 love at Rennet Rind, where we had 3 Baron by Gods, 1, and essentially the chalk line, you know, that's that chalky bit in the middle was getting smaller and smaller and then collapse and like run out. And everyone was like, where do I buy that cheese? Like, how can I get it? And Baron, and that's what we do as Affineurs. We are, you know, kind of restricting the profiles that we have and working with the cheese. And when it comes in, it's, you know, and the profiles are all over the place. So some profiles in the batch will mature quicker. So, you know, a gentle push in the center kind of around the cheese kind of tells me roughly where it would be. Like this one's quite inconsistent. Actually here, it's quite, it might be on the wonk or something, but this isn't matured as much on this side. Where
That's
this one,
technical phrase, chaps, on the wonk.
where this one, look, I mean, I don't know if you can see that, but it's this one is our profile 3 ready to go. Like, and it's pretty cold in here. I mean, it's 10.5 where I am at the moment. So for us to be getting that unctuous profile without ammonia is precisely, and Baron by God, phenomenal cheesemaker, but the profiles are just working like clockwork, which is amazing.
It looks absolutely stunning. We've got a few people saying, you know, it is delicious. And Laura again saying she doesn't like brie because she's always getting an ammonia, so she needs to purchase some from you, Laura. I don't know whether you're in the UK or not.
Yes.
It is just finding that perfectly ripened cheese, but not overripe, which is where you get your ammonia.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're maturing, you've got to find the right temperature that the cheese enjoys as well.
Yeah.
Because essentially, let's just say we mature this at like 4 degrees. Now, the bloom on the outside, the microflora, the biome that's working around the cheese is going to go, do you know what? I'm feeling very slow. I'm kind of going to go to sleep. And then after a long time, the bad cultures, not bad for you, but bad flavors begin to take over because they're kind of far more hostile and enjoy those environments. And then eventually the good flavored molds begin to die out. And that's, so you've got to be gentle, find the right area, humidity for you to keep that jogging along perfectly. And, Fen Farm are such consistent cheesemakers. Every time they come through, I literally kind of have a wall like this of Baron Bygod, and it comes in, I give it a push, and then that one goes there, that one goes there, and it's kind of like a sorting office.
We're getting lovely, wonderful mushroom flavours. Ed is saying, looking forward to what you will do with this one for June. It'll be interesting to see how you get on with the 3 kilo, Perry, because that's a different ball game altogether with brie. You're not looking are you?
I don't like
practicing.
I don't like the 3 kilos as much. Not as in flavour, but as in to work with.
Yeah, it is much harder, but that's the art.
That is the art. So I'll learn.
I know. I think we should get start practicing. Brilliant. Well, it looks absolutely.
Well, let me have a taste, actually.
Okay,
yeah. So no ammonia. That mushroom's there. It's a little bit more biscuity, actually, which is a bit odd. But that could be the maturing rooms and that just giving it off. Textures to die for. I mean,
it just looks absolutely lush.
It's phenomenal.
I love that the rind is still quite white. Well, on my screen, it still looks very clean and white. I'm not a big fan of when it goes grey and brown.
It's half and half, but the mushroom flavour that's in there is so interesting because normally in bries, the mushroom is kind of raw mushroom. This is it's got a sweetness with the cream, so it's like sautéed kind of mushrooms a little bit. It's got that sweetness that's in there at the back. And the cabbage is big, zero ammonia, which makes us so happy. So yeah, and it's just leaking out.
Cows would have been out on the fields already. They are at Fen Farm, aren't they?
I think they are at Fen Farm. I was meant to.
Yeah, should be.
I think they are. Yeah, they should.
Do you mind you, our weather has been so ridiculous, hasn't it?
Oh, and that's a big thing. Their milk quality, Montbéliard, like literally getting the cows that make Brie de Meaux into England to produce this kind of quality. So no, not like yet from Catherine. So to produce this kind of quality that's in there. And something about Montbéliard and Guernsey really adds to the colouring of the cheese. And Quicks have like a hybrid cow, don't they? It's like, I think it's like 7. American confirmed for us.
Mary's bred over the years. They've, bred this variation of crossbred the cows to get this amazing quality of milk, which is why their cheeses are super consistent, really, for the size of the cheeses and the amount they make.
Imagine having your own Quicks cow species, eh?
Yes, wonder what you would call them. Not Keith.
Not Keith. or maybe Keith, eh?
So then we've got that other little baby there. This is going to be interesting, chaps, because we've got from White Lake cheese. So they're down in Somerset, very near to Glastonbury. In fact, you can see Glastonbury from the dairy, the famous Glastonbury festival. So this is called Solstice. It's pasteurized cow's milk, but very special cow's milk, which Perry's going to tell you about now. So these are going to go out to the competitors the week commencing the 1st of May. So they're going to have them for 4 to 6 weeks to mature. It's interesting because this is a washed rind, so we're waiting with bated breath to see what the competitors are going to wash them in. Traditionally, it's washed in a Somerset cider brandy,
That's it.
Somerset cider brandy, which is neighbours of White Lake cheese. But each Affineur chap has got to have 30 cheeses to mature. So you're all getting 30 cheeses each.
What? Is Roger just trying to shift his stock? Is that what he's trying to do? That's 30 cheeses. He's like, okay,
bear with me. There is a reason behind this, because we need enough to sample with all the lovely guests. Yes.
Very good. Very good.
So you have 30 cheeses, so we need enough to judge, and that we need enough to sample with everybody is interested with the art of affinage.
Of course, that makes perfect sense.
So
it makes perfect sense.
We're going to be looking for consistency across the 30. We're going to be looking, so they've all got to be washed in the same, like it's a proper batch. And so we're going to be looking for consistency as we did for experimentation, quality, all of the things that we look for as judging in a cheese, to taste, texture, typically. I think it'll be an interesting one because it's only a short period of time.
Yeah, and I think the Guernsey cow is notoriously quite a difficult cheese to, Guernsey and Jersey are kind of, in my eyes, the hardest cows to make cheese from. So it's because I think their fat is around 4.5%, something like that, that's in there, and a little bit kind of up and down. So you kind of, you don't really know what you have until you have it, which is quite interesting, really, where we've got cheeses that we're working with, which are relatively consistent. I think it's Friesian, Holstein, Cropwell, Quicks, Mary's fantastic cheesemaker, Baron just knocking it out. Where I think the Guernsey cow provides a little bit of variable nature that's actually in there. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to kind of work out where those profiles are. And this cheese hasn't been matured by me, by the way. I got it straight in from White Lake.
Yeah, it looks quite young. It looks quite, because it can go really gooey, can't it? It can.
Yeah, you can see it's beginning to go. It's a bit uneven around the side. Well, hopefully Roger's not on, and if he's got to judge my 30 cheeses, I'll judge his one. But the rind is beautiful. Do you know what? I think it's literally just time. I mean, you can see that large wrinkles of geo that's getting in there. I mean,
the color is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about it is actually using that brandy that's created this kind of orange hue that's kind of like on the cheese. Because you've got that kind of coloration that's going within the cheese at the moment, like in the center, that golden kind of color. And then you've got that on the outside. So it's clever just to kind of marry those together and that, that's great from a marketing perspective as well. It kind of like connects them all together. And the smell isn't too, it's kind of like fermentation like smell. It's not like smelly socks that's on it. So yeah, like with the cheeses that I, will wash, I'll get a bucket. We use Cambridge water. So we've got a triple filter that goes through a UV, filter 1, filter 2, filter 3 in a bucket. So all our cheeses are washed in Cambridge water, which is pretty cool. The Evian, rightly so. Jan and Mark
put the kibosh on it.
Jan and Mark said to me, it
was actually finance guys at Rennet Rind.
Yeah. Owner partner Mark, who's awesome, and Jan, his wife, who's also an owner. I did the shoebox affinage thing with you guys. Remember, I kind of did the make your own affinage chamber, and that's available online if you want to make your own chamber at home. And I was talking about Evian a lot there because it's what I knew. It's what Sue kind of taught me. Was it Evian and Volvic actually, Sue? I can't remember, but I've been using Evian. And they said that's got to change. Like everyone in the area was like, that's got to change. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, a guy was in with his kit and everything. So so essentially,
fantastic.
I tipped that.
So you're filtering Cambridge water now.
Yeah. Yes, Volvic. Sorry, Sue. I don't know why. I probably insulted Mons by saying Evian. There's probably like of course there is. Yeah. Anyway, so Volvic. Sorry, I've been getting that wrong for years. Yeah. So I was using Evian unintentionally. So yeah. So washing it in that. A little bit of salt, depending on kind of what we're working on. Different cheeses have different effects with certain things, and then literally getting the cheese. And this was something I really learned at Mons. Like, these hold a lot of moisture, these brushes. Dipping it in and literally like wringing it out, because so much water stays actually in here, and then running it over the kind of cheese on the front. So and yeah, like doing that. I think the weird thing is, actually, when you're a micro affineur like we are, is that we wash when we want to. Like, if you, and I think that's the difference with being able to have hands on every cheese, me to have hands on every cheese. We're not at the sides where, we're, like Neil's or something like that. So I get to see every cheese and make that kind of like decision where, do you know what, I'm going to hold off on a wash. Because, too much wash, too wet, begins to crack, gets the cheese smelly, accelerate the breakdown, too much bad bacteria on the outside. So I get to kind of make those choices, which is quite nice.
Yeah. So would you use those? You wouldn't use the heavy duty brush on those little washed rind ones, would you?
No, I've got softer ones which are there, but I might do. It depends on what their cheese is like telling me at that time, but more than likely I wouldn't with those.
No.
Because that will, that will create a surface like this cheese, far more harder that you would want to work with those. So it'd be a much more lighter brush that I use that's outside, softer bristles, and kind of very delicately kind of applying it to the outside of the cheese.
Couple of questions from Laura. Bless her, a newbie question again. Is this like an époisse? So it is.
Well,
an époisse is not Guernsey cow's milk. So that's where the difference is. You've got a very yellow paste there. I mean, it will get yellower as it matures, I would imagine.
I mean, it is delicious.
I know. It's a great cheese. It's a superb cheese. I love it when it goes a bit more mushy, a bit more squishy, a bit riper.
But there's a huge merit in actually where it is right now. You actually can get that apple, that fermentation, weirdly. It's not like quite apple crisp. It is like, it's going to sound weird, but, apples falling from a tree, and then kind of over those kind of colder months, you kind of get that smell as you kind of walk across them, they crunch where they're fermenting on the floor. What that would taste like if you was brave enough to eat that off the floor. Not in a bad way. You kind of get that ferment kind of perfume that's in there. And the texture is really nice.
Rustic cider, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really claggy. It kind of like really sticks to your gums, which I wasn't expecting with that much chalkiness in it. So,
it doesn't look that sticky either. So Franco's asking if it's sticky. I think that's quite a young version.
And this is a part. It looks young, and I think the freshness it just doesn't do anything. The notes that I'm getting in there, that clagginess, that stickiness, that kind of vibrancy that comes through. And then it's just not that welcome, the kind of chalkiness in the middle. So a little bit longer. But the interesting thing is the rind isn't sticky, but they use this like special paper, which some people have, which is like,
very, very fine perforated, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's very fine perforated that kind of I think allows that rind to dry out in a semi-transit kind of thing. But it's not sticky at all, actually. But yeah, I mean, that's a weird, like...
Jenny's asking, will the rind of the solstice have been washed by White Lake before they are sent to you? So what's happening, Jenny, is they'll have been brined once before they go out, but not washed. So they'll have just been brined, and they're gonna be super young. They're gonna be 3 days old. So it gives the competitors the opportunity to wash it. If they want to wash it in something different, they can. They don't have to wash it in Somerset cider brandy. It's up to them. So excuse me, that's going to be the interesting side around it. Jenny's also asking, how many times do you think you will wash it in the 4 to 6 week period?
Oh, what I would do, I don't know. I'll keep that very secret. You can't know my secrets, but
Yeah.
but a cheese of this size,
I think you're going to have to keep, well, it'll be like your instinct.
yeah,
I would imagine
yeah,
your instinct will be on how the cheese is ripening as well.
exactly. So it would, and like I said, that's the beautiful thing about micro affineuring is that you can make those decisions per cheese if you wish. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this cheese reacts to these rooms that we have, the airflow that we have. It's going to be a really quick turning circle because I mean we're talking about the wash, but actually the environment around it is going to be so important. That kind of the space that it is because you've got 30 cheeses, the space between the cheeses is going to be really important. How are you going to stack them? Are you going to single line and column them, or sort of zigzag them so it goes through? Are you going to so there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of questions about drying rooms into higher heat, into lower heats. So in a weird way, washing, it's kind of like not so much the big question for me, which is a bit strange. Yeah.
Well, I think that's really exciting. And this is the whole point of this competition. Exciting. It's to have a bit of fun, but it's also about the people that are going to be affineuring the cheeses and maturing them. It's a learning process for you guys as well, isn't it? For a lot of the competitors, it's a learning process. It's for them to understand. It's a cheese that you wouldn't regularly stock, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah. So this is something that I used to get it a long time ago, but haven't in recent years, to be honest. So it's kind of like a new experience to us. It's got similar properties to other cheeses that we mature or know and love. So it'd be really, really interesting to just sort of work with. It's interesting, like you said, anyway, it's not so much a competition, it's learning. Yes, it was absolutely lovely to win. But it's nice to kind of like have that education and see, people like Brindisa who, Pimenton rub their cheese. And in my mind, I'll be honest, I love Brindisa, but I thought it was going to be an absolute car crash. And it wasn't.
No.
And just shows their skill, their skill as affineurs.
Exactly, treating it like the Mahon. What I will say before I just go through a couple of the comments is the 30 cheeses that go to 10 cheeses per competitor, 10 competitors, 30 cheeses each, they're all coming from the same vat, the same batch. So everybody has the same playing field from the beginning, and that's the same with all of the cheeses. That is one of the conditions we've made to the cheesemakers, that they have to supply the cheeses from the same vat. So we've got Kate is saying mine has started to go a bit runny around the edges. Yum.
And
then saying mine as well, Kate, delicious. And then David's saying, what about an ale wash from Moongazer in Norfolk?
I wonder who likes Moongazer or who owns Moongazer. But the question about that running around the edge, is it going to migrate into a rind slip scenario?
Yeah.
And is that going to be, but I don't think it is, to be honest, because it's very, it seems very thick around the outside, and White Lake are fantastic cheese makers and maturers. So it'd be really interesting to just bring this along a bit.
I know. It is delicious, and it's got that Guernsey milk, gives it that lovely thick texture as well, I think. That real, it's almost, it looks to me from here like clotted cream,
Yeah, that's so true, and it's incredibly dense. And if I'm going, like I said, if I'm going to be honest, looking at that, it doesn't particularly appeal to me. But actually, after eating it, I do actually quite like that profile and could see how it could work in certain cheese selections that I put out there.
Yeah, brilliant. So shall we move on to the blue?
Yes.
We are sending out blues next week. So this is from Robin of Cropwell Bishop Stilton. They are I always call them the middle size maker, so they're not as big as Long Clawson. They're not as small as Colston Bassett. Been making Cropwell Bishop Blue Stilton for years and years and years. The exciting thing is, when the cheeses go out next week to the Affineurs, they're 2 weeks old. They will have been, I've forgotten what the word is now. What do you call that?
Spiked?
No.
Painted. Yeah, pasted.
So they'll have been pasted, which is a technique that they use with almost like a palette knife, and they paste the cheese. That's it. Perry's demonstrating. They will not have been pierced. So the fun part is that the Affineurs in the competition are going to be piercing their own cheeses. I'm so excited about this one.
Yeah,
piercing crash all the way.
Piercing creates different cheeses. It's such a vital part to creating that bloom. Those canals through the cheese, allowing that Penicillium roqueforti to oxidize to become more blue. But it's a technique in itself. I kind of only remember like one, which was Mary Davenport, who was piercing by hand when I first came in the industry. And she was incredibly skilled at it. And obviously, one of the key things that she told me, so I'll give my competitor the tip if they've never spiked cheese before, is that if you're spiking the cheese, logically you think in. But if you don't change the spikes, you're going to get a core of blue and a cavern. So you need to go in, half in, yeah. So
and whether you pierce horizontally or vertically,
yes,
traditionally Stilton is horizontal piercing. So that's a whole nother ball game altogether. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. We've got quite a few people saying the Stilton's delicious that you've sent out in the boxes, so that's good. But your Cropwell is the Rennet Rind.
It's our favourite. The loaf wearing legend Robin that makes this cheese is. I've just had such a good relationship with this cheese. We get it in from him. It spends 2 to 3 weeks in here, and then it's ready to go out. And I think Cropwell, it's hard to find a Stilton maker that doesn't go into the supermarkets these days. It's such a it's gone through that phase. But it, in its whole form, matured in these rooms for a little bit longer, just creates such a depth of a profile that we're just so happy with. And I think it can stand up to the, without, in my opinion, it's the best of them, and it can stand up to the best of them. And I love the way that really surprises people when they have Cropwell. And I think it's because they've had that packed Cropwell, whatever. Yes. But, these Cropwell, what they, so they were cut on Tuesday, dispatched on Tuesday with you guys on Wednesday. It's phenomenal, so
I think as well that is a very, very key point that you've made there, Perry, is to have a piece of Stilton cut from our 8-kilo wheel is a completely different experience to having Stilton that's been backpacked and sat on a supermarket shelf for however long. It is just a completely different cheese.
It's completely different.
I just have to do a shout out to Sue, because answering all of Laura's technical questions in the chat. Sue, you're a legend. I love you so much. Thank you. Because I'm trying to concentrate on Perry and I can't answer those questions at the same time. But you know the answers much better than me as well.
Thank you.
Off the top of her tongue. We get the thumbs up. Not being intrusive at all. Go ahead. It's brilliant.
Keep on going. So should we just invite her in and have her as a third party?
Next webinar, definitely. I love it. And Sue is going to be at our finals as well, chat. So you can chat away and ask her, pick her brains through and through. Maybe we'll get you, Sue, on the next webinar. So do you want to taste that Cropwell with everybody? Because that's your baby. That's your cheese.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's...
that now then? Is it 12 weeks or is it 14
Yeah,
weeks?
so this is the one that I sent out was 14 weeks. It was kind of a little bit drier from where it was, so it's about there. But I mean, just the covering is so even all the way through these cheeses. It's starting to harden up on the rind. That could be where we cut it on Tuesday. Probably not. We like to keep these rinds a bit moister. No idea why. It just kind of worked for us, having that kind of when we take them out of their packaging and then repackage them. That's kind of that they kind of get that moist rind, which is great. Now, yeah, I just
because someone was asking what temperature would you mature the Stiltons at? So are you getting them in from Robin at about 12 weeks, are you, or 10 weeks?
Yeah, so I'll keep them round about. It depends on how they come in, but
yeah.
I go quite high with them. I go between 7 and 8.5 on them, and that seems to work quite well. That kind of move into it, which is good. It seems to lose more moisture quite quickly in that stage, and it becomes a lot more drier and a little bit more abrasive. And to me, the idea behind it is it kind of acts like a basin and a salt reduction. So it kind of lifts up that salt, which just allows more complex flavors to emerge. So it's just incredible. I love blue cheeses. They are secretly my favorite.
Oh, and me. And I love it's if anybody gets the opportunity to, if you go to a cheesemaker's, try a really young blue cheese. They're horrible. If they haven't matured properly, they are horrible. They're just bitter, and it's the mellowness. I love it when you get that toasty, that almost toasted almonds flavor in there, and you've still got the zing of the blue and the salt and the spice. I mean, I love spicy food, but I just love that. But then you get that kind of toasted nuts as well.
Yeah, it goes all the way kind of into this kind of baseline. I like to move them, kind of knock out the zing as much as possible and bring in the savory broth, high salt meat kind of element that's in there. And these rooms kind of allow us to kind of move on with them. And I always say, Cropwell, I don't think you'll find a more Stilton-y Stilton. It's just, this profile. I mean, I don't know who's had it. I just love it. It's just so interwoven. I think that's one of the things that people said about Priscilla as well, actually, the cheese that I matured last year, that it just seemed like it glided a bit more, and it seemed like a little bit kind of like spiky. Than other people. It's more kind of even, and I find like this is a nice, basey, savory, even journey.
And I think you're so right about it. Still, it's a proper Stilton. It's the classic. It is the classic. Colston Bassett, I love. It's got less bluing though, and traditionally it has less bluing and slightly more creamy, whereas that is proper hardcore Stilton, isn't it? Sue is asking, Perry, will you be ripening the Stiltons out of the paper? Well, you only get one. They only get 1 8-kilo Stilton to ripen. I think you'll have to, because you've got to pierce it yourselves.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, out of the paper.
It's arriving. Perry doesn't read his emails from me, but she did get one today. So it's going to arrive to them because it's going out so young and very delicate at 2 weeks old. So they're going to have to be packed to arrive at you, just to protect them while they come in by courier. And then gently snip that open, take it off, and then start to bring it into the atmosphere.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating because you kind of need to kickstart that kind of reset and kickstart and accelerate that rind growth when you're going from a that pack scenario straight in. It'd be an aggressive maturation period. And I've got a few ideas, and I think with this one, because I'm kind of known for doing, our profile of Cropwells that we have, I want to be a bit experimental with this one as well. So I've got some ideas working with some local people. So that's all I shall say with that.
Oh, right. We've got Mary, and I think another lady asked this earlier. Please talk about if and why blues need to be deprived of O2 to mature properly. It's not really you answer it. I'm
well, yes. I mean, well, there's a number of variables, but one of the main ones is that you've kind of got to set in what needs to be set in the cheese. You know, it's got to begin to work before you pierce. So you're not really depriving of oxygen. You're letting it do its thing, form, and then piercing.
Then
otherwise,
you add
you're blue.
Oxygen in, don't you, by a piercing?
Yeah, but so you're not really depriving. You're just kind of, in a weird way, procreating and allowing that cheese to do its thing, and then piercing, and then it goes, "Hey, I like this. Let's move on." So yeah, but I have heard stories, you know, of cheeses being cracked open in fully deprived, sort of bluing oxygen, and you open them up and they turn blue before your eyes. I've heard stories of that. Yeah. I think
when I had my deli, we used to buy one typical one that used to do that was the Ticklemore cheeses, the Beanie Blue and the Harborne Blue, and they were very much like that. They matured in foil. And you would crack them open, you'd go, "Oh, there's no blue in this blue," and then 5 minutes later, it's blue.
Yeah.
And cool. I think with the Cropwell, what they do is at 5 weeks old, they do the first piercing of the cheese, and then they do another piercing a week later. Top tip of what's happening there. We're going to have to close up soon, chaps, because we're over the hour. I'm just going to do quick questions that came in at the Q&A. Patrick Spinaza, who was the creator of Affineur of the Year, I have to say, when he was working at Wix, came up with the idea of Affineur of the Year. So hi, Patrick, and thank you as always. Is asking, what's the atmospheric pressure in your room, and how does that impact temperature, humidity, and aroma?
Oh yeah, he had this conversation when he came down. So he's allowed me to score a nice little goal. So it's negative pressure, so everything can be pushed out that's in there, and it's very subtle. So you don't want, the rooms essentially sucking in, any kind of, these are kind of, maturing rooms are self-contained actually. So our maturing rooms are maturing rooms within another maturing room. So we have kind of like 4 or 5 pass gates to get through before you kind of get into this, or 3 pass gates to get through before you get to this section. So yeah, so negative air pressure, everything wants to go out rather than in, and that allows our biome to kind of remain stable within this room.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Lauren is asking, can you sample a cloth-bound cheese along the affinage process? Is it okay to disturb the outer covering using a cheese iron? Yes.
Yeah.
Very sharp.
Yeah, very sharp. Plunge that in on the outside. Get your core out. Now, I suppose that's I think it does disturb the cheese, if I'm going to be honest. I've had batches of cheddars and other cheeses that I've ironed, and that one always doesn't taste as good as the others. Now, so you have to be very selective about your ironing. I think it would be a thing where loads of people will say, "Oh, it doesn't affect mine. It doesn't affect mine." But I always notice a difference in them, and weirdly, it becomes more metallic and a little bit more bitter, and I kind of have to delete that note from my mind if I'm going to second taste. So yeah, with Priscilla last year, I didn't iron until the day before, which was, I think that video's online of me just being like, and there was like a moment where it kind of, I put it on my palate, and I don't know what was happening, but I couldn't compute at that point, if it was nice or not and I think you see the sheer panic in my face, and then Priscilla just kind of like took off, and it was great. So yeah, and there's excitement, particularly in the competition, about trying that cheese at the last moment.
Yeah. So are you gonna iron Keith or not?
I'm gonna go all the way to the day before, and then I'll do it live. I'll do it live on Instagram because Yeah, I like the challenge of being an affineur and observing what's going on in the rind and reacting to what's going on in that rind.
Yeah, cool. And then we've got Katie and Hugh, who amusingly copied and pasted a different conversation completely into the question and answer. I love it. Love all that stuff. Is Copwell Blue, is it vegetable or animal, Rennet? I would imagine you've got vegetable, Rennet, haven't you?
Yes, veg, but they do an animal, Rennet, but
They
obviously
do,
you cannot. Yeah, but you can't call it Stilton, obviously, because all Stilton has to be vegetable, Rennet, right?
No, I
right?
think that you can. It's the milk.
You can you?
Pasteurized.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, of course it is. Yes, of course it is.
Milk.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all
I'm
right.
veg,
It's
Rennet.
late.
Yeah.
It's late, and we're keeping you up.
Yes.
So Sue's very rightly saying O2 is required for the blue to develop, hence the piercing, which is what we were trying to talk about.
Yes.
Rachel is telling me, Rachel, hello, my lovely marketing lady from Academy of Cheese.
She's brilliant, Rachel.
I know, bless her. She's not very well at the moment, but she's joined tonight, which is lovely. So Rachel is asking me to remind you all that, so each cheese is having its own webinar. So we are gathering we're having a round table, virtual round table with the cheese maker and some of the competitors, not all of them. It depends on their availability. I'm hoping Perry will join some of those. I mean, he's done his time tonight as well, bless him. Thank you so much, Perry. You've been an absolute legend. Always talking to you, and I love your passion and your skill, and what you bring to the table is fantastic. What you bring to the cheese board is fantastic. I'm sure a lot of people agree that have had sampled the cheeses tonight. So there is one webinar the first one that's defined and is up on our events page is the Quick's Cheddar one. So Mary Quick will be joining us live to talk to the affineurs, to give them some top tips, although it's getting pretty close for the cheddar one to make a lot of difference. And that's on the 30th of this month, I'm saying, at the same time. So please do always look on our events page. There's some exciting new things up there. Trips to Paris, lots and lots of different things going on. So, but Affineur is our theme tonight, and thank you so much, Perry. You've been brilliant. I hope you've enjoyed it. And
I always enjoy talking about cheese. Like, I completely lost track of time. You know, we could have been here for 4 hours, you know, glass in hand, but I love it. And I love what you do.
A beer or a glass of wine by then.
Exactly. And obviously, I'm sure people know, but if you check us out on our socials, it's at Rennet and Rind. And if you search Rennet and Rind on Google, I'll come up. On our Insta, I do loads of things about, you know, the boxes, the mystery boxes that I make 5 cheeses a month. What I'm doing in the maturing rooms, I'm finding less time for socials. But if you want to know something about cheese and this has really interested you, please just reach out. Just give us a call, drop us an email, because we love affinage, we love British cheese. And if we can help you, just let us know, because we'd love it.
Yeah, and to enjoy more cheese. Susan's saying there are still tickets available for Affineur of the year in June. We are going to be taking over the whole building this year. It's in central London. It's at the China Exchange, in the most random place ever, but they're amazing because we're a not-for-profit charity-run business. They give it to us at a very special rate. It is a massive building, so we can have lots of guests, and do join us if you can. But anyway, we're going to sign over and out, because you need to go and eat that cheese. I need to go and find cheese to eat, because it's made me really, really hungry. But thank you, everybody, for joining tonight, and thank you so much, Perry, and thank you so much, Sue, for answering all those technical questions.
Thank you, Sue.
Bye, everyone. Have a
See you later.
Bye-bye now.
Love you both. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.